In this video, we're going to be backtesting gold using a simple structure and liquidity based strategy. I'm going to be walking you through the full risk management plan and all of the rules behind the strategy as well. This is going to be part one in a series where we backtest a whole year's worth of price action using the same system. So if you are new, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of the future parts of this series. Make sure to like the video so I know whether or not to release part two. And let's not waste any more time. Let's jump over to the charts now and let's get right into it. Alright guys, so before we get into the backtesting itself, let's do a quick rundown of the trading strategy and risk management plan that I'm going to be testing and using in this video. So very simple. This is obviously a very dumbed down version of the system. So as for the actual strategy itself, I'm not going to go too much into detail about this, but we're basically identifying overall market structure and direction on the higher time frame. So in this case, we're going to be on the daily, the 4 hour and the 1 hour, just to refine the structure and to identify any of the main breaks of structure, changes of character, liquidity levels. The next step, we're going to go through and identify a point of interest where we're either looking to buy up or sell from. And for myself, these are just very simply supply or demand levels on the higher time frames, or a liquidity level where I think price may react from as well. And we're just going to simply be reacting to what price shows us rather than trying to predict exactly where the market may go. Then we break it down to the lower time frames, which is when we essentially react to price and know whether price is likely to or has a high probability of pushing away from our point of interest, which we identified in the previous step. So all of this is, for myself, is look at the 5 minute or the 15 minute, depending on which time frame the point of interest was identified on. Wait for a market structure shift with imbalance created, and then simply enter on this imbalance, or if the risk to reward isn't that great, wait for a pullback into a lower time frame supply or demand level. Again, I have a few other confluences that I use for those lower time frame supply or demand levels or entry confirmation criteria. However, I'm gonna skip this for this video just because this video is about backtesting and not too much in detail about the strategy itself. We're going to use a mechanical target rule, so we're just going to simply target a 1 to 3. We're going to ignore all of the structure, any liquidity levels, anything like that, and we're just going to mechanically target a 1 to 3. If you guys haven't tested this yourself, I would highly recommend it. It is something I've started to implement more recently, and it simply just takes away any discretion when you're trading in the live market, which it helps you to get rid of any of the emotional decision making that you may or may not make currently. It just helps to make your trading very simple. You know exactly where you're going to target. You don't have to think about it. And if you have backtested this and it has an edge, then it's a very simple rinse and repeat process. Something that helped me a lot. I'm sure it will help you guys out a lot as well. But as always, backtest it for yourself first. Risk management, very simple risk management plan, 1% risk per trade. We're going to use a set and forget approach, so we don't make break even and we don't take any partials either. Again, this is something I've personally backtested a lot, and I found that the best approach, or in this case the most profitable approach for me, was letting the trades run to stop loss or take profit and not making break even or taking partials. I think if you guys use a higher risk to reward, I personally use only a 1 to 3, like I said in this video. So if you are using the higher risk to rewards, like between 1 to 5 and 1 to 10, again, I don't really recommend that for most people. But if you are using those higher risk to rewards, it may be beneficial for you to decide on a break-even point, because you don't want the trade to go 5% in profit, pull all the way back, and then it be a loss. You want to manage your risk in a smart way. But yeah, that's essentially the trading plan we're going to use it. Let's head over to the charts now and we'll get straight into the back testing. Okay guys, so let's go ahead and start a new session here on fxreplay. So what I'm going to be testing is, like I said in the title of this video, gold, but we're going to be going from the beginning of 2023 all the way up until the beginning of 2024. The reason that I'm not going to be testing 2024 as well is because that would completely bias the results because I've only recently seen this price action play out. I know the higher time frame direction. I know pretty much all of the levels that gold has reacted from this year because I've looked at the price action every single day. So I'll sort of remember how price played out, which is obviously going to be sort of cheating and is going to bias the results, like I said. So we'll start from beginning of 2023 and we'll go up until the beginning of this year. And let's get right into it. So let's start the session. Cool, we'll get rid of auto and we will zoom out slightly. And now we can start looking for our first potential trade. Okay, so let's zoom out a little bit, see what price is doing. Right, so what we can see here on the weekly and how I'm viewing this, we've sort of had this consolidation period, right? Price failed to take out this previous high up here, so this was not a sweep. But what it has done now, it has broken out of the bottom of this consolidation and reacted from this weekly demand down here, taken out all of these previous lows that we had created above that level. You've seen a very obvious push from this level after price fell to break below this demand. And basically all of this price action here, until you get to around this level, is already efficient, meaning there is no imbalance. So I think it's very unlikely you see price react from this level. And very clearly at the moment, price is, in this sort of bullish trend, which will become more evident when we break it down to the lower time frames. But currently I would be bullish on gold because we have swept these lows, clear bullish momentum coming from that level. Daily time frame, same thing, price is breaking past all of these supply levels and all of these previous areas of structure. Just to make this clear as well, I'm going to go down to the 4 hour. So only focusing on the most recent structure, what we can see, we've had a mitigation of this demand. After the pullback, price pushed back up, broke this high right here, pull back, sweep at this sort of level as well, which I'm going to mark on. We then had another rally, price broke this high once again, and then we've also pushed back down again, reacted from this sort of demand. So what we can see now is price push up into this clear drawn liquidity that we have up here. So this is going to be the first target for our buying positions. As I said, higher time frame is bullish, therefore we're only looking for buys. I'm not looking to sell counter to this very evident trend. And yeah, this high up here becomes the first target for the buys. So what we can do now is break it down to the lower time frames and see some of the more refined structure. So 15 minute, we've had this change of character. That would have been a nice trade, but unfortunately it happened just before the start of the session. Price reacting from demand. Price continues to push up. We've had this 15-minute sort of pullback there. So where could we see price pull back into? Maybe you could see this low here taken out into this imbalanced range. So to be honest, at the moment, there's not really any clear points of interest that I'd look to trade from. So we'll play price a little bit and see if it does indeed pull back. Yeah, so there you go. Didn't really get a pullback. That's not something I would have looked to trade because you just had this big sort of impulsive move up. Gold does that quite a lot and doesn't give an entry. So what we could see now is maybe a pullback. I'm just going to play it on a few more candles. You could potentially see a pullback into one of these sort of levels. So we have this demand. You also have this one down here as well. Right, so these become our points of interest for the buys. Preferably you see it come into the lower one because that would give a more a discounted position to buy price in. Next liquidity target for myself is this drawn liquidity right here. So I'm just going to mark that on with a line as well. For anyone unfamiliar, by the way, this is a clear liquidity level just because it's a previous daily high in the market where you had a lot of volume come in. So even if price doesn't reverse from this level, you will very likely see a reaction from it. I'm just going to mark on some weekly levels as well where you may see price reverse. So you obviously have this weekly supply zone as well, which created this imbalance. So those are the two sort of levels I would look out for price to potentially reverse from, just to keep that in mind. But for now, we're only looking for the buys, and ideally we want to see a pullback into one of these two zones. But let's see if that indeed happens. Okay, so something else you could see, you have just swept that 15-minute low. So you could potentially see the buys from here. Let's see what the 5-minute does. No, so it looks like price wants to continue lower. This is when I would look for that reaction from demand. And there we go, price has tapped into our demand zone. So now, if we remember the trading plan, we're looking for an M5 confirmation. In this case, I'm just going to go to the 3-minute to see the structure more clearly. So the current 5-minute high we want to see price break is this one. There you go. So you've had that 5-minute change of character. You sort of have this 5-minute demand where we could look to enter from, right? So this becomes our entry point if price can pull back into it. I'm going to have a slightly more conservative stop just in case price wants to come back down, sweep this low, and then continue up. You see gold do that a lot. And like I said at the start of the video, we're going to just mechanically target a 1 to 3. And there we go. Let's see if we get tagged in. Okay, so slightly annoying. Directional bias was perfect, but price never pulled back into our zone. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that limit now. And what we could learn from this is that, you know, this area here was the sort of whole demand zone. I over refined it a little bit to this single candle. So maybe next time, don't over refine it as much as that. But yeah, clear push from this level. I wouldn't be surprised if price now comes up and just takes out that high. Or maybe not. So we could see a potential second entry opportunity here. So price fell to take out this high. We now have swept these previous lows. Price is still within this demand zone. So this zone is still valid for me. And as we can see right here, I don't think we're going to get an entry because there's no 5-minute structure for price to break. Either we could see price just rally straight towards these highs, or maybe you could see it come lower, take this low, and then give the confirmation. So let's see what I want to do. I'm going to play this on the 15-minute as well. I think it's probably just going to continue straight up without pulling back. Yeah, okay, so let's have a look here. So we've had that reaction from demand. Price has pushed up towards these highs. So ideally we want to be looking for buys into these highs right here. Where could we potentially see that? Maybe after a sweep of this 15-minute low. Let's have a look how price reacts. Okay, so again, gold just pushing up into those highs, no pullback. There we go. So now we've had that second breaker structure once again. So let's see, this area right here does actually look like an inducement. So we have that 4-hour demand below. I wouldn't be surprised if price now gravitates towards that, sweeps it, and then we can look for some potential buys. Daily, I still see it heading towards this wick, so we're good to potentially look at more buys. Yeah, so there we go. We've had sweep of these previous lows into higher time frame demand. Most people are probably going to be selling now because they're going to see this as a break of structure. That is when we go down and we look for some potential buys again on the 5 minute. Currently I'd want to see price break this high or sweep these lows again and then break structure. Let's have a look if we get that. Hasn't quite broken it just yet. Okay, so there we go. Very clear change of character on both the 15 minute and M5. We also have this very clear demand zone here where the volume came into the market. So I'm going to set a limit on this demand. I'm going to have stops below that low. And again, mechanical 1 to 3 target, place the order. There we go. Let's see if price pulls back. There we go. Nice rejection so far. Price building all of these highs. Cool, nice. There we go. That was our first trade. We can now potentially look for a re-entry because I do see price coming up to the main trend high up there. So we can mark this on. That's our 15 minute break of structure. So what you could see now is maybe price come down lower, retest into this sort of region, and then potentially continue higher, or regrab maybe this low. Yeah, so main target is this high up here. Let's see if it pulls back or not. You could see maybe a reaction from this demand. Didn't see that before on the 5 minute. So let's have a look. Basically just want to pull back into this sort of range and then a confirmation on the M5. So let's see if it reacts here or whether it wants to sell straight through. Okay, so very nice reaction, but obviously no confirmation there unless you wanted to do a risk entry and just set a limit on this zone, but that's not personally how I trade. So yeah, there we go. Price took out that high. If you wanted to trade a more sort of discretionary take profit rule, obviously you could have targeted this main trend high because we were anticipating that getting taken out anyway based on overall trend. Okay, next potential point of interest, we have this demand that price has just tapped into, and then you also have this one down here as well. So let's just analyze that on the lower time frames. This looks like market open. Yep. So there's probably going to be no trade here just because of this ugly looking gap. Yeah, there you go. So price just wants to continue up, no pullback. And there you go. So now price has taken out that daily high, which if you remember was this line right here. So you could see some potential rejections from here. I'm also going to delete some of this because we don't need it anymore. And I'll keep that one. So either we see a rejection here or we see price head up to that next level, which is this zone that we identified previously. Has it swept that level actually? Yeah, so it just swept it. Let's have a look for some potential sells here. Since we are already up 3%, we have a nice buffer on the account, so we could risk a counter trend trade. Obviously, this would be lower probability, but I think it's worth the risk in this case because we did just sweep that daily liquidity level. There you go. So there's your 15-minute change of character. You created this supply zone as well. So I'm going to set a limit on that. Stops maybe slightly above, 1 to 3 target. Ideally though, I want to be targeting, we can see we have this sort of demand zone. So ideally I want to target no lower than that. So if I make my target here, right, stops just above the high, but I want to make this a 1 to 3 if stops are just there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag the entry slightly up to around, probably 0.25% into that supply zone instead. And I'm going to set this limit instead. Slightly more refined entry, could miss because price may not come up all that way. But yeah, I don't really want to be targeting any lower than this demand. Price is still overall bullish, remember, but we are just expecting a small reaction from this daily liquidity level. So let's see if we get a pullback, ideally before that demand gets touched. Yeah, so there we go. I'm going to delete this limit now, just because this demand zone was touched, and instead I am now going to look for some buys within that demand zone. I'm going to keep this supply highlighted as well, because price could still react from that level. On the 5 minute, we have just had that change of character. So based on that, I'm going to wait for a pullback into this range, target this supply, and we want it to be a 1 to 3. So have stops like that. There we go, pretty much a sniper entry. Cool, that very nice trade. I wasn't expecting it to play out that quickly. If you wanted to wait for a demand to form as well, you could have still entered on this demand that price very nicely tapped back into. And yeah, 100% win rate so far, 2 out of 2. Looking for price to potentially grab these highs. So let's have a look what it wants to do here. There you go, so small reaction from that supply, but it did end up grabbing that high. So our sales would have lost essentially. What can we see now? Maybe a regrab of these lows down here. Or you also have just tapped into that extreme. So see if buys present here or not. No, but you have now just grabbed these lows. So let's see if price forms some more structure. I'm going to play this on the 15 minute as well. There we go. So these lows were now grabbed. In order to buy though, we want to see at least this structure taken out anyway. There we go. So that structure was taken out and the 5 minute closed above it as well. Entry point of interest is this demand, and I'm just going to mark that on as a change of character. And I'm going to set my limit on this demand zone. Target, again, a 1 to 3. Okay, tagged in. And there we go. So that would have been quite a tough hold if you were trading that live, but there we go. Very nice setup. Again, I'll explain that for you guys. So we were in this hourly demand. Price had grabbed these previous lows and then re-grabbed these lows. Very clear breaker structure, pull back into demand, 1 to 3 target. As simple as that. Every single trade is exactly the same. we're just looking to rinse and repeat the same entry model over and over again. So now what we can see, price has very clearly just not reacted from that daily liquidity level that we had marked. So we're expecting it now to gravitate towards the next supply or the next liquidity level, which is that weekly supply zone all the way up here. So let's see if we can now jump back in the buys. Maybe from this demand that price has just tested into. We've had a sweep of previous lows. Let's see how this zone reacts on the 5 minute. Nope, so looks like price wants to continue lower. Again, that is why we wait for the entry confirmation and we don't just try and predict what price is going to do. What I can see now though is we have swept this liquidity level. Right, so anywhere sort of now would be ideal for the buys. Let's look at what the 5 minute is doing. There you go, so you've sort of had that 5 minute change of character. You have this sort of imbalanced region down here. So I'm going to set a limit on this. And target that high, but I'm going to have a slightly bigger stop just in case price wants to break those lows one more time. So doesn't look like it wants to pull back. Actually, you know what? That still could pull back. We have that liquidity level above it. Yeah, I'm going to get rid of this limit now. Slightly annoying. Where could we have gotten instead? Maybe, yeah, price reacted from this demand, so could have probably entered there once we saw it not pulling back. But yeah, that's completely fine. Analysis was good. There you go, another break of structure. Still following this trend up to that weekly supply zone. This candle looks like some sort of news. Maybe you could see price retest into this demand, which is where news reacted from. So let's see what it does in this zone. Or not, doesn't look like it wants to come back into that zone. Yeah, so not expecting price to come back into that zone now, but what I am looking for is for price to push up into this high. Where could we see that? You have this 15-minute demand down here below these lows, so if we can see a confirmation in this zone, that would be nice. Or not, so price just wants to push straight from that zone. The reason I didn't enter here, by the way, we didn't get our confirmation. There was no 5 minute structure for it to break. It just sort of tapped and went. That happens sometimes. Obviously, you're not going to get an entry every single time. Another break of structure just there. So now we're looking between this low and this high for our potential entries. Or I would also consider buys if this low got swept into this demand down here. So I'm going to mark on this level. I'm also going to mark on the extreme, which is this one, and it's probably imbalanced on the lower time frame. Yeah, so you have like this whole area here. Okay, there we go. Okay, I like this. So we've had grab of this sort of low. You've seen price break this 5-minute structure. You have this 5-minute demand. And I'm going to set a limit on that zone. Stops, probably can have it just below that low. And again, 1 to 3 target. There we go, nice rejection so far. Cool, so there we go. I think that's 4 out of 4 actually so far. So we've had another breaker structure now. Again, just simple trend trading, looking to buy up into that weekly supply up there. Where can we see price pull back into? Well, you obviously have that very obvious demand there. That is at the extreme though, so price may not want to pull all the way back into it. So let's see if any more points of interest form. Or not. Price has now come into our weekly supply zone, so keeping an eye out for some sells here actually. Right, so there we go. As we can see, rejection of that weekly supply, 15-minute flipped bearish. We have some liquidity for price to take out there. We have imbalanced supply. All of our confluences are there, so we can set a limit. I'm going to have probably stops just above that imbalance, and I'm going to target again a 1 to 3. Let's see if it wants to pull back. There we go, we are tagged in. If you missed that initial entry, you've now sort of had an internal change of character just there. So you could look to enter on this supply zone, but because I'm already in this trade, I'm not going to do that. There you go, so both trades would have been valid. We've now had another breaker structure. So I'm going to look for a potential second entry from that supply if we see a nice confirmation. Okay, so you've had a reaction from it, but there's not really anything nice to enter from there. Right, so I'm liking this actually. So you've had a regrab of these highs. You're in that 15-minute supply zone. So this is where I would look for a 5-minute confirmation. You've also regrabbed that high as well. I'm going to enter here with market execution. Stops above that high and 1 to 3 target. Gonna place the order, market execution. There we go. I'll play this on the 15-minute just so it's a bit quicker. You have had a nice sell so far. Cool, nice. There we go. And in the live market as well, I would have made this one break even as well. So that we only have 1% risk open on any at any given time, essentially. Okay, but I'm going to delete this now because price is coming into that hourly demand zone. and overall is still bullish. I was just expecting a small reaction from this weekly supply, not anything too big. So yeah, let's have a look at how price reacts within this zone. Cool, so we've mitigated that now. Let's have a look if we can get an entry. I want to see this high break first. Okay, now I want to see this high break instead. There we go. Clear 5-minute breaker structure. I'm going to look for a pullback to around there. Stops below the low. And as always, a 1 to 3 target. We don't want to do market execution. We want to do a limit. Nope, so no pullback. Maybe you could see price come into this demand instead. Yeah, so let's see, because you've broken past all of this sort of internal structure. You have now built up, you know, all of this previous liquidity. You've reacted from the top of the range, so the most premium part of the range. So yeah, I'm going to see if price reacts at this this demand, or if price comes down and regrabs these lows, I would also consider buying there. Okay, so price is in that 15-minute demand. Waiting for another confirmation though in this zone. Let's see if we get it. Not quite. Okay, so you've now seen it regrab this low. Is still within that 15-minute demand, so yeah, there we go. Regrab of these lows, 5-minute change of character. There's no need to wait for a pullback on this one because the risk to reward is already going to be decent. And we're going to target again a 1 to 3, and we're going to do market execution on this one. Don't know why it's doing that. There we go. Very nice. So literally zero drawdown on that one. Also, I never explained this, but the reason I didn't wait for a pullback on this one to like this demand is because it's, you know, you've got to ask yourself, is it worth waiting for something that's probably never going to happen, given all of this momentum it breaks structure with? Or because the risk to reward already allows us to get a 1 to 3 before price takes out this opposing liquidity, is it just worth entering market execution? So that's why I went for market execution on that trade. Yeah, and there we go. So now we've also had a 15-minute change of character. So what I would look for here, again, still bullish. We're trading within this range, looking for price to come up into these highs because it has held demand and broke structure to the left. I would look for a retracement to take out these lows into this imbalanced range. So let's see if we get that after this low gets taken out or not. You could also see a reaction from this now. This demand has become valid for me because you now have liquidity above it. I'm just going to actually set a limit here and have stops below that. The reason is you've had that 15-minute change of character, so you've got a clear imbalance and price is overall bullish. We can get a nice 1 to 3 on this as well before price takes out that opposing liquidity. So I'm going to do a limit order just there. There you go. And boom, so 3%. Let's see if we could have got a confirmation on that. No, not really. So price kind of just tapped and went. So one thing I've also noticed on gold is that sometimes it's better just to set limits rather than wait for confirmations, because sometimes it, or very often, it doesn't give a confirmation. It will just kind of tap and go. So maybe something for you guys to consider if you do trade gold, maybe test just simply setting limits rather than waiting for confirmations. Okay, still looking for buys. Maybe we have a look in this demand, targeting this high up here, and then this one to the left as well. Sweep of this zone would also be valid. See if we get a confirmation. Yeah, so not really. No 5-minute breaker structure there, so invalid. And there we go. So now we've also broken the main structure once again. Price is continuing bullish. We can now get rid of this internal trend that we were trading. Like that, there we go. So far we've taken, I think, 6 or 7 trades. Actually, I think we've taken 8 trades. And I think so far we're on a bit of a winning streak. So let's just quickly look at the analytics so far. So we've had, I think 1 trade lost, or we executed it break even actually. But yeah, overall very good going. Average risk reward 1 to 3 obviously, because we were doing the mechanical TP rule, and some very, very decent results so far. But this video is already probably about 40 minutes long, I would guess. So I'm going to end it here, and we're going to do a part 2 where we're going to continue all the way up until the end of 2023. We're going to do the entire year on this channel. So if you guys enjoyed this backtesting video, make sure to give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Make sure to comment if you want me to do a part 2, part 3, part 4 of this series, or if you want me to backtest a different pair. Let me know in the comments below and I will get back to you. But if not, I will see you in next Friday's backtesting video where we continue this session on gold.